Here are my 2022 F1 drivers and constructor standings predictions. So we're going to start off with our drivers. And in dead last, I have Nico Hulkenberg. I think that's pretty explanatory. He only raced 2 races this year, so far, to substitute for Vettel when he had COVID. So I don't realistically see him either gaining another opportunity unless another driver goes down with an illness. And so for that reason, I have him last. In 20th, I have Latifi. Again, he's been having a pretty rough year. I think he's been 16th in every race but 2. So I don't really see him being a contender for at least points and help him get up the standings. In 19th, I have Schumacher. Haas has shown that they have pace this year, but Schumacher hasn't been performing at his best. Kevin Magnussen and his teammates been able to have 2 point races where he's been able to rack up 15 points for the team, while Schumacher hasn't yet. So I can see him getting points, but I don't see him getting enough points to make a difference in the standings. In 18th, I have the rookie Guan Yu Zhao. He had a point in his first race, and the Alfa Romeo looks like it has better pace than it did last year. I could see him as well, kind of like Schumacher. He hasn't been performing their best, but I can see them getting some points to lift them up a bit in the standings ahead of Latifi. And then in 17th, I have Albon. Like Latifi, Williams, again, a back marker, probably going to finish last in the standings for constructors. So Albon's been performing pretty well. He had 2-point races, one in Australia and then the other one in Imola. And so he's been able to rack up some points. And I think he'll continue to get little points by little points for his team. But I just don't think his team has enough pace for him to be competing for higher up in the standings with like the midfield teams. In 16th, we have Stroll. Him and Vettel both have been doing all right this year. The Aston Martin definitely doesn't have the pace it's had last year. So for that reason, I have both Vettel and Stroll in 15th and 16th. I think obviously Vettel is a way better driver than Stroll, so that's why he'll have the better edge and be ahead in the standings. But I don't think their car can compete with the cars up ahead. 14th, I have Magnussen. Like I was saying, Haas has had unreal pace compared to last year's car. So I could see Magnussen be able to compete with the midfield pack. His teammate, not really. I don't think Schumacher can. But with the way Magnussen has been performing, especially at the start of the year, I think he can definitely compete with them. In 13th, I have Yuki Tsunoda. Although he's ahead of his teammate right now, Gasly, I think Gasly's been having a rough start. So I think Tsunoda will definitely end up dropping behind him. And throughout the year, I think he'll drop back further because the AlphaTauri's been all right. But compared to last year, it's definitely taken a downfall in pace. In 13th, we have Bottas. Like I was saying, Alfa Romeo's car has definitely been better than last year in pace. And so obviously Bottas being an experienced driver and more skilled driver than Guan Yu Zhao, I can see him competing up in the midfield. He's kind of in a similar situation as Magnussen. Both have like younger rookie teammates, and so with their veteran and more skilled toolbox, I think they'll be able to gather some points for their team and try to compete with midfield cars. In 11th, I have Ricciardo. Ricciardo's been struggling a lot this year, and although the McLaren has been able to compete for podiums at some races and top 10 finishes, I don't think Ricciardo's been doing that good for the fact that his car can be doing a lot better. So I think he might have a rough year, and he's already had a rough year at the start. I think he'll hopefully start to do better near the end, but for that I have him at 11th. 10, I have Gasly. Like I said, AlphaTauri has had a lack of pace this year, so I don't really see him doing anything better than 10th. In 9th, I have Alonso, and 8th, I have Ocon. Both Alpine drivers have been doing exceptionally for the pace of their car. And I think throughout the year, their car is only going to get better. So I think that they can both be competing for hopefully 1 or 2 podiums and then probably be ahead of the midfield. 7th, I have Norris. I think this will be probably the last. He'll probably lead the midfield teams as right now he is. And Norris has definitely been doing pretty well recently. McLaren's shown at the start of the year they didn't have the best pace, but they've been slowly getting better and better, and their car's been looking better and better. So I think he'll probably be leading the mid pack. 6th and 5th, I have both Mercedes drivers, Russell and Hamilton. Mercedes obviously hasn't had the pace and dominance compared to last year, but I think they still are a top 3 team. But I think there's still a bit of a gap between Red Bull and Ferrari compared to Mercedes. So I see them getting better throughout the year, but still having that 5th and 6th spot. Not competing with the midfield, but not competing with the top 2 teams. 4th, I have Sainz. Again, Sainz that hasn't been able to perform as well with the car he's been having. Obviously, the Ferrari, I think, in performance-wise is better than Red Bull, but he's been definitely struggling. So for that fact, I have him at 4th. 3rd, I have Perez. Obviously, Perez has been doing way better than Sainz in this battle for Constructors and Drivers' Championship. I think Perez will be, will not finish too far behind the top 2, but he'll definitely do better than Sainz. 2nd, I have Leclerc, and 1st, I have Verstappen. The reason for this being, I think Ferrari's had pace at the start of the year, and slowly Red Bull's been crawling back. And I think with Verstappen having already won World Championship, and obviously the skill he has, I think he'll definitely be able to outperform Leclerc. And with that, winning the Drivers' Championship for the 2nd time in his career. Now onto the Constructors. And dead last, I have Williams. Pretty explanatory. Like, if you look at the drivers' standings, both the drivers are near the bottom, and Williams realistically hasn't been. I think they've been last for the last 3 years, so I think that'll continue this year. 9th, I have Haas. Like I said before, Haas has had some pace, but I think because Schumacher has been performing the best, and there's not much Magnussen can do other than perform his best. And so I think 9th is a realistic spot for them. 8 is Aston Martin. Like I said, Aston Martin obviously is struggling with pace compared to last year. So I don't realistically think they could be competing with the midfield teams unless we see a big spike in their performance, in their car performance. I see them being around the bottom of the standings in 8th. 7th, I have Alfa Romeo. Kind of like Haas. They have one driver who's very skilled and is a veteran. And then they have one rookie driver. And then so I think obviously the standings, Bottas will be higher up, hopefully competing with midfield, getting them some points. But because of Zhao's performance, I don't think he'll be able to compete with Bottas and help bring in points. And for that reason, I have them at 7th. 6th, I have AlphaTauri. I have them at 6th because, like I said, compared to last year, there's been a big drop off in pace, and they've had a rough start. Gasly hasn't been performing his best, but hopefully, usually, he ends up performing well near the end of the year, so I think that'll happen. But I think it'll be a bit too late for them to start competing with teams like McLaren and Alpine. In 5th, I have McLaren. Like I said, I think Norris will lead the mid-pack drivers, but I think because of Ricciardo struggling and his lack of pace, I think that'll definitely be a drawback when fighting with Alpine for 4th. And obviously with that, I have Alpine being at 4th. Like I said, their car's been only getting better, and Ocon and Alonso have been performing really well. Then in 3rd, I have Mercedes. Like I said, they've been definitely ahead in the mid-pack, but not close enough to compete with the top 2. So for that reason, I'm in the 3rd. And then 2nd and 1st, I have Red Bull and Ferrari. I think if you look at the standings, Verstappen's obviously going to win. I think he's going to win. And I think Perez will outperform Sainz. So with that happening, obviously Red Bull will win the Constructors. And then 2nd will be Ferrari. These are my 2022 F1 driver and constructor standing predictions.